Hello, everybody. Welcome back to DeFIRE AMAs. It is Thursday, May the 26th. Today, we're going to cover the updates on DeFire's backend work on the Blaze protocol. We had a kickoff event with some of our developers to discuss the architecture and the building process for some of the Blaze contracts and some of the major questions around how to uh, engineer and architect some of the mechanisms that we want to have to create new capabilities to offer DeFi uh, investors. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of just pull back the curtain a little bit and explain a little bit of the process of how these decisions get made. It was a really cool meeting that we had. Um, it has been mentioned in the past that we have our team of developers, and we also are going to be bringing on uh, a team called 10 Clouds to help with a sprint to ramp up the speed of our development on Blaze to get to the point of delivering the MVP. At which point everyone will be able to start enjoying the use of the Blaze app. Um, so, obviously, when you say that you are bringing on a development team, people think, well, that's just there's more bodies, that's more work getting done. They are skilled, they're trusted, they provide a level of security, all of those kinds of things. But also, in this case, it actually brings a lot of advisory connections from people in DeFi who have done some pretty cool things. So we're able to just talk to some like real chads that understand um, some limitations because they've been around to develop some of the biggest protocols in DeFi. And anytime you start to develop something new, um, there's discussions that happen where you need to think of. There's no limitation per se in what you can do, but there are better or worse options given market conditions, given the team that you have, given your primary objectives and what secondary and lower objectives um, may be out there, and just realizing as you're building how that's all going to fit together. So obviously, our primary objective is to offer a low touch solution for people to be able to maximize their yield and have efficiency of time and effort. There's a lot of people that are working in the DeFi space, protocols that are working on capital efficiency, but the side of efficiency that goes to giving the end user back their time, which is a big part of the whole FIRE movement aspect of what we believe in as a team, it's kind of a different perspective to take, right? So if you want to focus on giving people back their time and creating a low touch solution where people just deposit stable coins, and then a lot of the work of allocating that liquidity into different strategies is done on the back end, then you have to think about a lot of the things that the end user, that the investor would be doing themselves. So if you think about depositing your stablecoins into a farming strategy, for instance, that means that you would traditionally go to a DEX, you'd purchase the different tokens that are needed to build a liquidity pair, or if you're dealing with Bouncer, maybe three or four different assets that are being paired and then deposited into a pool. Um, so you've purchased the tokens. That there's a fee there. You pair the tokens. There's a fee there for the transaction. You then stake the tokens in the protocol. There's another fee there. In addition to the fees, when you are because of the liquidity available on chain for different assets, if you're trying to deposit a larger or smaller amount of your assets in exchange for whatever your target asset is, let's say it's AVAX. So if you are trying to go from USD to AVAX plus one other token, the the amount of liquidity that's available on any given moment for those different tokens is going to also result in potential slippage fees. So if you just buy $100 worth of AVAX, or if you, let's say some other Avalanche protocol, let's say you buy $100 worth of uh, something that has less liquidity, maybe a lot of liquidity, but less given, moment to moment. So maybe something like Yeti Finance or Platypus Finance, which are newer protocols, but they're popular, so that they can have uh, adequate liquidity, but at times they may have low liquidity on a DEX like Trader Joe or Pangolin or wherever you're getting your going to purchase your assets. So if you're trying to buy just $100 of one of those tokens, you're probably going to have very low slippage fees. So whatever the market value price is, you may end up getting a number of tokens that represents maybe 98, 99% of the stablecoin that you deposited minus the transaction fee for gas plus the slippage. Now, if you were to try and go back in there and just buy that same token, but to try to buy $5,000 to $10,000 worth of that token, then you can run into real problems depending on what the asset is and how liquid it is on that market. So, maybe you say Platypus is experiencing low liquidity on Pangolin, and so you go to purchase, you take USDC or DAI or some other stable coin, and you're going to swap it for PCP is the name of their token, right? So then when you go to approve the transaction, it shows you that you're going to have a 35 to 50% slippage fee, which means you're going to end up with half the value that you put in stablecoins. You're going to get back in PCP. You don't want to do that, right? Um, so that's not a big deal if you're dealing with a protocol idea where each individual investor is going to build their own liquidity pairs and then stake those themselves. But the whole idea of DeFIRE and the idea of a lot of new up and coming protocols is going to be to try and lower the barrier of entry for newer DeFi users. So we're trying to come up with a solution that allows that person to just stake their USDC, and then on the back end, DeFi goes through the process of building out those strategies and buying those assets. Well, that slippage is something that has to be architected for, like how, in order to make sure that um, that the the assets that you provide are swapped into whatever new liquidity pair, or if the asset's just going to be staked, that it's done in a way that minimizes loss. Right? You want to put as much of your money into the strategy as possible, and so um, in our particular way of trying to do that, it requires forethought about how are you going to minimize those transaction fees, because some of that involves going through protocols that are outside of the DeFi ecosystem in order to swap the tokens and then um, pair them. So um, these are things with solutions, but that is why some of these things haven't been developed yet. If you think about people that developed some of the earlier really popular protocols, whether that be Balancer or Uniswap or some of the other major protocols where people are buying and selling and market making, it's not that there's nobody in those teams that ever thought about similar concepts. Maybe they didn't have a fully developed concept like we've developed, but part of it is that there's a certain amount of time involved in trying to figure out these these pinch points, and so that I think that's an interesting thing for you guys who are just investors and haven't really um, listened too much to the development side. If you've never had a chance to listen to an AMA of someone who's a really well respected, experienced developer, I would recommend going and listening to AMAs with developers that have had a lot of success. Listen to Andre Cognier. Go listen to Justin Bieber with the Byte Masons and Double Sharp. Go listen to the founders of teams on Aave, MakerDAO, all of those protocols. These people have a wealth of knowledge, and some of them who have really good communication skills can break down some of this stuff, um, which will really help you understand a different level of security and risk than you would otherwise pick up just from reading or viewing YouTube videos from people that are active investors. So that's one aspect of what's being worked through right now. It's not something that you can do just by drawing up a diagram and saying this goes here and this goes there. And that is the architecture, and that will that part will work. But when you start interacting with other protocols, then that will inform your architecture. Also, you'll also have to reverse engineer your way back from that potential risk vector, and then you may decide to choose to engineer or to design that aspect of the protocol differently, so that where you're going to end up, and you're not going to end up with a situation where a contract was allowed to complete a transaction that created a loss, and that may just seem basic. And the thing is that during the bull run in the last year, a lot of the protocols that came out were forks of other things, and there were new things that came out, but those those were the minority, right? And some of the protocols that are now developing new tech were there, and they were just working on a very small, a minimized scope. We weren't offering a lot of different strategies or a lot of different farming opportunities, because they wanted to remain, um, they wanted to have longevity in their view of how they built out their protocol. Um, I think of a team like RoboVault that, you know, had a lot of respect thrown on it from other developers, but did not see a lot of TVL compared to similar protocols that offered a similar kind of a service. Um, and now they're expanding. And I think that they have a similar mindset to the DeFIRE team, although I think we do slightly different things. Um, but so that's like part of what happened this morning in this meeting, is just going through some of these different pinch points, the people that had more experience in building versus the people who were kind of spearheading the strategies and the overall high level concepting, working together to try and identify the important the most important pieces that have to be worked on. Is you have to start from those points and then build out from there, because there'll be there's a what Glitch calls the control tower of this application, and then there are these facets, these areas where things plug in, and that's how the containers can be versatile and change direction, be in a high risk strategy and then redeploy into a low risk strategy, or have multiple assets that are in rebalancing, or to use leverage, or to use um, delta neutral strategies where there's call options and covered calls used. All of these different areas of the market where we want to be able to offer a broad array of different services. Those are all the facets, but you have to start off with the with the core of the app, and so um, it's a really cool, fun project at this point, to just work through all of those different details. It was really a lot of fun to talk with these people who have. Some of them are, some of the people on our team are coming from different backgrounds. We've got front end guys, we've got back end guys, um, and then the Tin Clouds team. They have the synergy that they've developed. They have a lot of institutional knowledge that's trickled down to all of the different developers, and then the guys who are the um, more in a more advisory role have worked on some of the biggest projects in crypto, and it's cool. Like I know that Firefly and Phoenix and myself, we've all had different questions where we've tried to be working through them. We knew the basic answer, but it's just so great to have context brought to it of well, this protocol kind of dealt with this particular vector of attack when you try to institute this kind of strategy architecture, and this is how we mitigated it. This is what we need to do in when we're going to build out this kind of a container, or this is how we're going to deal with implementing rewards. Uh, the way that the DeFIRE token is the timing of the swapping in and out into the container of stable coins, the harvesting of the fees, uh, all of those functions. There are better and worse ways of putting that all together. So for all of the work that we've already done, this was a really fun day to take it to that next level of not just thinking about creating a product that people will be excited to try, but to think about how to build it in a way that is is anticipating where we'll go when the market's in different areas of modes of action, where it's positive or negative price action, and whether there's high liquidity or low liquidity in a particular container, more or less interest in different strategies, how to create resiliency in the system. So um, I think it, I wanted to provide that transparency to people because um, you never really know what's happening on the back end because developers tend to develop, and we all are. I think a lot of investors, on the one hand, are really happy when they don't hear anything, and then there's the devs ship something, and so they feel comfortable with the idea that, well, I don't need them to say anything, I just need them to deliver. But then on the other hand, there's always that question of, well, what are they doing? Why is this so hard, or why does this take time? And people understand the idea that they want the devs to be safe, and they want the project, they want the team leaders to have the fiduciary responsibility in mind at all times. But it's hard to quantify that sometimes. Nobody speaks Solidity, or very few people do, who are on the investment side, which I think will change. But even so, I mean, there's a limited number of people who really understand. Even if the developers could stop and the engineering team would talk about their individual day-to-day actions, most people wouldn't know how to wrap their head around that, or the developer might not have a good metaphor for how to explain it. So um, I think we're going to try and work on that. I think that'll be part of the DeFire Academy efforts when we actually have the Blaze MVP imminent. Um, and also, I've been collecting resources about explaining or training for understanding Solidity and Python and Rust and some of these different languages. So I'm hoping that as time goes along, not only will you be able to find tutorials for how to learn those languages, but maybe there'll be some sort of in between phase where it's not really geared towards someone who wants to learn how to code, but it's just geared towards someone who wants to understand what a coder's doing, and understand the code from that level. So, so yeah, if you have any questions about the development of the front end or the back end of any of our dApps and how that's going to work, please drop a question in the questions channel, or feel free to DM me or anyone on the team. So otherwise, the activity this week has largely been focused around that. There's also been front end our Blazed app development going on as well, because the front end and the back end have to work in tandem. So we've done some more work to build out the actual visual design, and think about how that's going to work with the user's experience. And then we're going to start communicating more between the front and back end guys as to what makes sense and what needs to change, based off of how the coding is going to work. So, and then the core team's been working on the plan for the next couple of months, the budget, um, the next sale, communicating with some folks that are going to be participating, and just trying to think about how all that should work in the current market conditions. It doesn't seem that we're going to get any great news in the market anytime soon. The summer could be very, very different from last summer. And so we are confident in our plan to get from here to the MVP and beyond. Um, Luckily, the way that we have set things up, um, we know that we will be able to make it through that uh, tough tough time in terms of just attention on DeFi. We'll be able to build and then have our MVP to be ready to go and be an impressive presentation when it's ready. Um, but obviously, we would love to be able to do a lot of more of the other things that happen during the market. Just uh, bringing on more contributors, and having more small kind of updates, more work on marketing and more work on education and all that kind of stuff. At this point, it just made sense to really focus on the product, um, because attention is so low right now. It takes a lot more energy to attract a lot less attention, and so from the sense of just trying to make good use of the capital and the um, time and energy of the people that are part of the team, and translate that into value for the investors. I think that's how we came to our uh, how we've been coming to our plan for how to move forward in the short term. It's not a huge deviation from what was already going to happen. It's just things are slower. The updates for any protocol, whether that be on Twitter or their AMAs, or any other social media, has been a lot less active. I think most people have noticed that. There's Twitter influencers that are a lot less active. It's just um, when the money exits, then that's kind of what happens. Luckily, we are there's not been any drop in activity on the development side. If anything, it's allowed us to focus more on getting that done. And so I just want everybody to rest assured that we're moving at top speed in that capacity. So I'm going to leave it there. If anybody comes in to chat, I'm going to stick around. But thanks everybody for listening. Hope everyone has a great week, and I'll catch you on the next one.